Good evening, traders. It is Tuesday, May 27th, 5:08 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome to another video with Digital Goatz Academy. I'm your host, Antoine Farrar. First and foremost, if you're tuning into this video, definitely hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. And welcome to our market overview. So, what I have right now is US 30. Obviously, if you've been following this channel, you know we specifically talk about indices because that's where the money is. Not to mention, with us looking at indices in the foreign exchange market, it can kind of put us in an advantageous space within the stock market to take advantage of stocks that, based off their technicals, where they might be going up, as well as like the fundamental analysis part. But let's just look at US 30 and S&P today, and that'll kind of be it. I think I'll look at Bitcoin, but that'll kind of be it for our market overview today. So let's just look at the state of US 30 currently, right? I think this is what I put out last week on our weekly overview. I don't know if I put that out on YouTube yet. Did I? So it'll be out today when you guys see it. So last week for our weekly review, we were talking about how indices are up, right? How US 30, S&P, the Nasdaq, they're up as far as their trend, right? So if we just get rid of all that information, just looking at the 4 hour time frame right now, we can just look back. Now I can't do anything because my like once I click on it, it'll bring up all the markups and annotations that I have. So let's just kind of trace back the market where we're at, right? So this is where the market is currently at. It closed above the high of Sunday. So the one thing that I do want to emphasize is that make sure you're checking your broker, right? In comparison to other brokers, right? So for instance, because this is fresh on my mind. I'm sorry if I'm not diverting from our topic, but this is fresh on my mind. So this candle right here, this was Sunday's opening candle, right? Which this is a tip. If Sunday has a strong momentum candle or like the way Sunday opened, that normally predicates what's going to happen the rest of the trading day. Oh, it's not my alarm. The rest of the trading day, right? So this candle specifically on my broker, which is KOT Forex, right? When you look at the charts, because they have a trading view chart, this candle is a gap. You know what I'm saying? Now, because I focus on gaps, I pay attention to that stuff. That's like manipulation or the information is being misread. You know what I'm saying? So when I looked at other brokers across the board with US 30, S&P, NASDAQ, like Oanda, I looked at another broker, Black Bull, they didn't have gaps. So, it just kind of calls into question, do you rely on your broker or not? Now, I'll probably do another segment about this, but brokers aren't your friends. You know what I'm saying? Brokers aren't there to assist you in making money. They're just the medium for you to be able to place trades. You know what I'm saying? It's up to you to make the money. You know what I mean? So with that being said, that's stating that, our brokers are not our friends. They're not gonna assist us. They will do things like manipulate the market. So that gap that's on my broker screen for a trade locker is on that gap that's with my brokers on my trade locker screen, but that information wasn't true. Now it may be relevant later on in the week, but as far as today, that information wasn't true. And because of that manipulation, I could have looked at the market a different way had I not been an experienced trader. You see what I'm saying? So pay attention to little things like that it won't jump out at you because across the board with my community on Discord, none of us saw that gap the previous night. It wasn't until London activated, or once we went into London, that by the time I saw it in the New York session, I saw that there was a gap on a 4 hour time frame. That's why I'm on the 4 hour time frame looking at that. I didn't want to divert from our segment, but I just want to, kind of put a public service announcement. Make sure you're checking how your broker is, identifying the market and then compare it to other brokers, i.e. on TradingView, or if you have another interface that you use to trade like MetaTrader 5 or whatever, just kind of compare that. I just wanted to kind of push that out there. But anyway, US 30, right? So opening of Sunday, we were bullish and we were bullish. So we can see that between Monday morning and this morning, all we did was consolidate to keep moving up. The same thing with S&P 500 and I believe NASDAQ. I don't really follow NASDAQ all the way, but I'm assuming that it's doing the same thing as S&P and US 30, right? So this was the gap that we had like 2 weeks ago. The market came back and got that on Sunday, on Friday. On Friday, it shot down, and then we popped up. So Sunday, we're opening up. And like I said, this was the gap. Now, what was crazy about the gap is that I expected there to be a gap, but since that information is like, it just seems like it's manipulation in the market. I mean, it aligns with what I was talking about because once I released the video for the weekly overview, I mean, the weekly review, you'll see that I was expecting a gap, and it did gap viciously, which means that I expected the market to keep continuing in this direction as far as like buys. So we're up in the market. You know what I'm saying? If you just look at where we're currently at, you can see that this last drop pushed the market up. Where was the other drop that we saw? I gotta go out to a higher time frame. I'm trying to identify each drop that happened, the market shot right back up. Like it didn't. Let me see. Was it on the 4 hour? I'm not sure, but you can see even, and this was from our move from March. So when March the market dropped, let's get another one that doesn't have all those gaps. Maybe Black Bull. It's Black Bull. You know what's crazy is that I never really noticed all these gaps. I mean, maybe I did. Maybe I do have them annotated, and that's probably why it looks like this to me. But anyway, even with the gaps, right? Even with the gaps, if we just turn it to a line chart, we can turn it to two charts that make sense, right? Turn it to a line chart. We can see that we're above this previous high right here. This whole move looks like inverted head and shoulder. That would be crazy if that happened. I think I identified this last on the weekly review. So I have two inverted head and shoulders that I want to see if we have identified within the market. But look, again, we don't know until it happens, but if the market is reacting that way, we have to respect it as such. So one, the fact that it's still maintaining its momentum that we drew, I extended it, that we drew. We know that the market can come back and pull back to areas we didn't expect, but the momentum is still to the upside. How do we know? I mean, look at what happened today. So that kind of confirms the right shoulder. I don't know if we're fully breaking out of this because we could, test this area 3, 4 times if the market wanted to. Now, what I want to show you is where I identified the continuation or the possibility of the continuation of an inverted head and shoulder. Y'all, everybody probably identified it already, but I just want to draw it out because these are some of the things that we've been talking about this week: break and retest, head and shoulder, inverted head and shoulder. And it's not going to be like straightforward. It's not going to just jump out at you and say, hey, this is what I am. You know what I mean? You have to see how the market responds and then respect it as such. So the fact that we've pushed up from the zone, I'm more inclined to believe that we are representing an inverted head and shoulder right here. So this is on a 4 hour time frame. And again, we just have to see after the market opens up at 5 o'clock, like what the move is. Now I do probably expect a gap down to retest this candle right here, but we'll see. I don't want to, at when it comes to 5 o'clock, I don't really try to predict a gap up or down on what may happen. I kind of just respond. But based off of this information and based off of us looking at the higher time frame, I would have to believe that yes, this is an inverted head and shoulder until proven otherwise. What would violate it? If we had a sell candle that came all the way back down here, we don't want to see that. We see that. That's not saying that the buy is invalid, but that's saying that this pattern is invalid and it's probably coming back to test lower areas. So that is one thing that I do want to point out is that the market, just because we think we see it, that may not be the pattern. But again, once it starts tracing up, we have to identify it. I mean, we have to respect it as such just like we see with Bitcoin, and I'll show you in a couple in a few minutes with Bitcoin, right? So same thing with S&P. Same thing with S&P. And again, there was really no exciting news today. 9 o'clock, not the 9 o'clock candle brought the market down like it was supposed to. And this is the one thing that I've talked about. Now, what's crazy is that this is what I talk about, leaving your markups, guys. Like traders, like leaving your markups. This is a buy zone I had. This is a buy zone I had from last year. And the 9 o'clock candle this morning retested this from, what is that? London, the 1 a.m. candle. It retested that straight off of my buy zone that I had from a year or two ago. It might be a year ago. I might be over exaggerating when I say it's 2 years ago, but I think it was like a year ago that I had drew this information, right? Same thing over here, right? Now it's only if it plays out as such, but for us being in preparation to identify it, it puts us at a better position to be more accurate within the market. Because again, I emphasize that even within identifying patterns and you're wrong, say the market goes against us and we're wrong, we're still in the right direction because seeing that it invalidated that pattern, that now puts you in a position to say, well, I'm gonna take it down for a sell or a buy, whatever pattern that you have and stuff to a certain point. I'm not going to like overshoot it, but to a certain point, because there's been plenty of times where I've been able to either identify a pattern or the pattern was wrong and I was still able to get in the right direction and whatnot because the market showed me what I wanted to see. I expected to be this, even if I'm in, may take my loss. Now I can get back and either recover some money or I can get back and make some more money. You see what I'm saying? So everything is not a loss. It just depends on how hard you go with your lot size, but also like if you're being patient enough in the market. You can't trade if you keep, losing money. We know we will lose money, but it doesn't help your margin when you're just losing money unnecessarily. But when you see you're in the wrong direction, okay, chin check, let me take that L. Not let me see if it turns around. Let me take that L, find a position where it gives me a pullback and get in on the right side. You won't know. You won't know if like that'll be the right position, but at least you can identify the right direction, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So everything like falls into place. Everything that we've been learning, everything we've been taught as traders, it falls into place. These are the times is where you use that, you know what I'm saying, to the maximum best of your capabilities. So far so good with our inverted head and shoulder. If it violates it, we know that we may be trying to retrace lower. I'm not saying that it's a reversal, but it could be, you know what I'm saying? It goes up high enough. Now, what ends up happening is that it plays out this inverted head and shoulder. This is the 4 hour time frame. We should see it push high, but if it decides to return down here after playing out the inverted head and shoulder, it's going to blow past this. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to look for a lower position in order to correct itself. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of have two options if it violates you kind of have two options even if it doesn't violate the market. If it pushes up, then we know we're continuing to buy probably for a while. Probably for a while. Case in point, right? Case in point of example. Look, this was our first inverted head and shoulder that we identified. And I think this was like on an hour time frame, and it's still maintaining that, right? Again, it's not picture perfect. So, like again, it's not going to jump out at you and not going to be the perfect version of what people expect an inverted head and shoulder to be. But once it does it, you have to respect it as such. You know what I'm saying? Once the pattern is formed and it's actually pushing the market in that direction, you have to respect it as such. But, I mean, we could say that, well, Antoine, there was a double bottom down there. Yeah, there's so many things that you could identify and stuff. That was just when I identified that, that was more so for me on that time frame to see if the market would continue buying up, and it did. It's playing off this inverted head and shoulder that we have, not the prettiest joint. You know what I'm saying? And again, you could say that, well, this is really a double bottom. Okay, well, let's just add confluence to it. This is a double bottom. And on top of our last leg, we saw that the possibility of an inverted head and shoulder. We don't know if it's an inverted head and shoulder yet, but it's playing like it is. Now, the one thing I do want to highlight too is that you see when it pulled back, whenever it pulled back to correct off of the inverted head and shoulder to keep the inverted head and shoulder going up, it never came back to the neckline. You know what I'm saying? Anytime the market comes to the neckline, it's violating that pattern, even if it shoots up to like pull back or vice versa. Like if this was a regular head and shoulder. So let's kind of invert. See what I'm saying? This is still buying, but let's say that we were selling and stuff. You see how this head and shoulder played out and it never came back up to the neckline. It could wick to the neckline, but it can't have a candle that closes to the neckline. You really don't even want to see a wick to the neckline. So the fact that it didn't come back to the neckline each time gave me confidence that we're still buying up. Now, yeah, it dipped lower than what you anticipated in this direction, but it never came back to the neckline. This was the neckline. It got close, but it never came back to it. So that's something that I want to highlight right there because a lot of traders are like, they don't realize that with head and shoulder patterns, depending the ferocity of it and the momentum, you could probably stay in a trade for a little while than what people anticipate. Indices, maybe not, but had this been a Forex pair, somebody could still be in it. Oh, this was the move that I was looking to go down. It was on S&P. You see S&P shot down, pushed up. Every move that shot down, no matter how violent it was, pushed up. So even with S&P, just looking at the trend, and this was the gap from 2 weeks ago too. It never came back down to it, which is good and bad because I would have liked to see it, but US 30 did touch its gap. You know what I'm saying? So US 30 confirmed that. So if US 30 is pushing up, I'm not thinking that S&P is going to come back. I guess if I would extend it up a little bit more, I could say that it touched the top of the gap, but I guess that's good enough. You know what I'm saying? But either way, we're up. Each level we've broken. We broke this area, tested it. We broke this area. Shallow test of this consolidation, make sense of it. We broke out of this area where a gap was at. Well, right here. We broke out of this. Well, we gapped up. This was a gap up. We gapped up and we retested the gap and we pushed back up. I mean, we just have to follow the pattern, what the market is doing. Again, you know what I'm saying? This is consolidation right here where the market pull back to this area. I mean, I don't think so. I really don't think so. If anything, it'll be like a shallow pullback. Maybe back to our resistance zone and then continue buying up from there, right? So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Like I'm looking for, look how close we are. We've talked about this the entire year. Like I don't want to overshoot it, but we talked about S&P going to 7,000. Look how close it is to 6,000 from the time that we dropped down. We've talked about this. US 30, I said that I believe we're going to 50,000. We're so close back to the top of where it made 45,000 at. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then we're still not done. You know what I mean? S&P is closer to the top than US 30. So to me, if US 30 is trying to make it to 45,000, S&P is definitely going to hit 6,500 or 7,000. You know what I'm saying? Just by looking at the momentum, there's a lot more space for US 30 to go up to reach the high than there is S&P. So S&P is probably going to be the first one that blows through it and creates a new high. You know what I'm saying? Unless they'll equally do it, because they're not going to, like, you see, they're not running at the same pace, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? S&P is clearly closer. $1,000. What are we at? We're like $960 off, $940 off from being at the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was that? For US 30 or S&P? Yeah, for S&P. US 30, $3,000, about, you know what I'm saying, $35,000 from the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're there. Everything that we've been talking about, we're here and we're seeing it reflected in the stock market. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you are not learning the skill set of trading, you're playing yourself. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to go on a tangent here today, but I'm telling y'all, family, like you are playing yourself. It don't matter what job you have. It doesn't matter what skill set you have, yo. You need to have a way to make money that doesn't require your complete attention from work. Yes, when you're learning trading, of course, you're going to have to hone in on it. Anything that you learn that's new, you're going to have to get a little bit proficient at it. You're going to have to put a little bit of work in it. But guess what? Time is moving forward, yo. So the more time you contemplating on figuring this out, the more time people are actually learning about this. And it makes it harder when you get in the market because there's going to be more players. So when there's more players, there's more manipulation. And I'm not saying like, well, here's the one thing I can say for a fact. When I first started trading in 2019, the market was not as volatile as it is now. Now, that may be because the market is actually up more, you know what I'm saying? So more equity means like more manipulation within the market. But what I tell you is that I could have like went to sleep for 2 days and not even check my trade. And now I was, trading regular forex pairs, but I could have checked. I mean, I could have went to sleep 2 days, come back and check my phone, and at least be in profit, or at least not have my account blown. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that now. You can't do that now, and it's only going to get worse as more and more investors are going into this market. Oh my gosh. Hold on. As more and more investors are being added to this market, as more and more players are coming into this market, the market's going to try to fight against that. Because the only way this market grows is if they take our money. You know what I'm saying? One, our initial deposit, the fees that come with it, but also hitting our stop losses or when we close out a loss. You know what I'm saying? So that's how they make their money. Pay attention to every time your stop loss has gotten hit, the market goes up in your direction or down in your direction. That's how it works. You know what I'm saying? But guess what? You're not going to get proficient at this skill just watching somebody else do it. Hell, even me on YouTube, you're not going to get proficient by just watching me. Yes, this is the starting point, but get your head in the game. You know what I'm saying? Don't be so scared. Try with $50. And hell, they got demo accounts, family. You know what I'm saying? So nobody should have fear. But I will tell you this. I made $25 one time in a demo account. My first time trading, when I was learning how to trade. I ain't touched a demo account since besides prop firm trading. You know what I'm saying? So I'ma just be like real like that. Like I don't really resonate with demo trading because you are kind of playing yourself, but you do need to start somewhere. You know what I'm saying? This is me from experience. In the beginning, obviously, I would have been like demo trade so you blew in your face, but the goal is to make money. The only way to know how the field is to be in the field. You know what I'm saying? Like a doctor doesn't get experience just by going to school. A doctor gets experience by going through their trials and errors, unfortunately, because that could be hazardous. But again, you have to do that. Even as a mechanic, I used to do mechanic work. You know what I'm saying? Going to school does not help me change oil. You know what I'm saying? Getting underneath a vehicle to change oil helps me change oil. Changing the engine does not help me by watching a YouTube video. I mean, it can help you, but I still have to go in there and figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Unloosen the bolts or whatnot, like all that. You know what I mean? Not to mention, don't even get me started on like when you take an engine out, you disassembling the engine. You know what I'm saying? You're not just like taking the engine out and putting it back in. So there's so much stuff, but guess what? You gain that when you're doing it. You know what I mean? So I know I went off like a little bit left field, but I do believe this is the greatest year for a person to be a trader or an investor where they won't have to wait for the run for like 10, 12 years from now because after this year, you will have to wait for that. You know what I'm saying? The moves are happening where it's like you can kind of invest and just coast, but after a while, it'll be a fight game where you have to get your money and get out and not just hold it because your position is off. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I got to say with that. I don't want to go too far left field. Now let's look at cryptocurrency. But like I said, between indices, all of them, they're remaining up to me. This looks like an inverted head and shoulder on both US 30 and S&P. So if we're continuing to play off of that, then yeah, I say buy. Keep buying when it dips. You know what I'm saying? Keep buying when it dips. Just understand that the more it goes up, the harder it's going to try to dip. You know what I mean? So we could just get a straight line up here. That doesn't mean that the market won't retest that. It'll wait till you get comfortable. You like, man, this thing to the moon, and then it brings the market all the way back down here. But it makes sense. This looks like consolidation, like after we break up out of here, but it makes full sense when the market returns to it. You know what I'm saying? It's never like a confusion once you get more data. It's only confusion confusing when you're in it. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what the market overall direction is. You know what I mean? But being patient, watching it play out, we have to, respect it as such. We're up. You know what I'm saying? We've been up since from 36,000. So the fact that we went back to 40, I think that was the initial buy zone like last year. So the fact that we went back to 42K and closer to 45,000, like it's telling us, the technicals is telling us. And watch, some fundamental news is going to come out and it's going to shoot it up to the moon, and everybody's going to be like, oh, because President such and such said this, this is why the market did that. Hell no, it's because the technicals did that, and the fundamentals was just a trigger that we already knew needed to happen. You know what I'm saying? So what we're waiting on as the retail traders, what we know, the experienced traders, we're waiting on the fundamentals to kick this thing into overdrive or whatnot. Because right now, everything's just a technical data play. All right, let me stop getting excited and go to cryptocurrency. I hope y'all feel my excitement, right? So Bitcoin, another thing. Now it is at a resistance zone that I had, right? But I do believe that Bitcoin is still up. This is an 8-hour time frame. We've been identifying Bitcoin really since that dip that it had at 74,000. Now again, I talked about this earlier today because my audio was off. So I did do a full video where my audio was off again, and I had to double check to make sure my audio was good for this one, and we are good. Yeah. Yeah, we're good. I hope so, because I'm already what, like 30 minutes, 20 minutes in. But anyway, so let's kind of look back at it at the weekly. One thing is that I want to say is that I still think this is a good time to invest in cryptocurrency, with Bitcoin being the leader. Now, I bit myself in the butt because I went against myself when the market started consolidating over here, and I thought that we were going to push down back to these lower levels, which we didn't, which is crazy because I had already had all this information from 2023. I had already marked all this up. Here was the disbelief. Now, you know where I got this information from? This is free game right here if you pay attention to it. This was I mapped this out based off of this is a free illustration that anybody can Google. It's called the Wall Street cheat sheet. And if you look at the Wall Street cheat sheet, how its illustration is currently right now, because there's only one illustration for it, right? Let me take this off. You will see that Bitcoin specifically almost represents it to a T. You know what I'm saying? Almost looks identical to it. You might have to scrunch it up, but hold up the Wall Street cheat sheet and hold up Bitcoin in front of your face, and don't see if your eyes start opening wide like, yeah, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Yes, it's following the Wall Street cheat sheet to a T, which is crazy because we don't have any information besides like 10 years ago off of cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin. So all this data is new, but it's being represented by what Wall Street is saying. You know what I'm saying? Like that. And what the cheat sheet is that every market is supposed to mimic when it's going up, because every market in theory is supposed to go up, right? So it's supposed to mimic, you know what I'm saying, what that Wall Street cheat sheet says or whatnot, how the market, and it even gives like um what you want to say, cycles or time zones where it's talking about building accumulation, and then what I'm saying, all that technical jargon that Wall Street cares about that I don't really care about, because it's consolidation to me. But they'll be like, this is accumulation period and stuff, but it doesn't matter because that information is relevant. I actually use that same information once I click off of this to create, this was in 2023, to create all this information right here, and I got played because it consolidated so aggressive, and I just wasn't expecting that. You know what I'm saying? We seen crypto fall, and then here comes Trump, winning the polls, and it just shoots up. And now here's the thing that I was able to manage is that once it retested the area that it broke out, because cryptocurrency does maintain a pretty good foundation of technical analysis. So where you don't have to, besides the higher time frame and like the manipulation, I mean, besides the lower frame and the manipulation, you don't really have to guess what it's doing and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Only when it's like it's doing moves like this. But really, when we look back at it, we didn't have to guess that. Because there was a lot of people that said that, man, they think that this thing is still up, right? So it pushed up. It retested 74K. Now, this is the part where I was looking at that, okay, we're good because it tested the area that it broke out of, and it's maintaining that what? That inverted head and shoulder that we drew, what, like 2 months ago? You know what I'm saying? So the only thing you could do is start testing, this is consolidation right here, this consolidation, but momentum's high. If anything, this is just another consolidation area to push the market up, right? So I still think that cryptocurrency right now is a good investment to be in. Obviously, a lot of us missed the move because it's not at those lower values that we would have liked to get in, such as like XRP, but it's still early. I don't really like promote investing in Bitcoin because I look at it, especially since we missed it at the lower tier, but still invest. But I look at it more of like a guide, an index to what the possibilities of other crypto tokens could do. You know what I'm saying? So like Ethereum, Litecoin, EOS, Tron, Shiba, is showing their potential. And they may take a little bit longer than Bitcoin. But I do think that now that we've seen how volatile and how, you know what I'm saying, uh, more of an asset that cryptocurrency can be. I do see. I remember I kind of laughed at this, but a guy said, like, yeah, man, we could see it by next year. Bitcoin is 700,000. Now that sounds insane. And it did, and it still sounds insane. But I guarantee you this, it sounds a lot less more far-fetched than it did 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a long way from here, but because of how we've been seeing things react, I can't act like that ain't possible. You know what I'm saying? That would be insane for me. You know what I mean? I don't think by next year. But again, I'm out the game of being like what I think. What the guy said. He said, no, no, no. I think he said by 2030. I think he said by 2030 we could see Bitcoin at 700,000. Bro, what? What? That's insane. Bro, what? I gotta find the guy who said that. I watch Bloomberg, so I gotta find the guy who said that. But look at that. You see how I'm scrunching like now, I do have to invest. I am going to invest in Bitcoin because it's like, but for us, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm 30 plus years of age. I don't think that that'll be beneficial on my timeline. But again, it ain't about my timeline. This is about creating generational wealth for your family. So, you have to be the pioneer. You know what I'm saying? So if you're the first early investor, it ain't a bad thing if you don't reap the benefits, even though you would like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but be the one that, pioneers this for your family, investing in cryptocurrency. If you're with Digital Goats, just be prepared. We're going to be throwing out, some crypto investments as well as the stock market. And all our stocks is back booming. But that's all I got for today, everyone. I'm sorry that I pushed out this video so late. And I had those technical issues. I'm gonna make sure I stay straight from now on. But that's all I got for today. Hope everybody found value in this information. Again, guys, if you are tuning in to Digital Goats Academy, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I know how, amazing this information can be. You just get lost into listening to it, and it's like you just quick click away. I get it, I get it. But if you remember before you get in, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And if you're returning, definitely thank you as always. Make sure y'all are hitting that like button and commenting as well. This is Antoine for Raw. This has been Market Overview with Digital Goats Academy. I will catch everybody on our next video tomorrow.